right, today we're talking about law of cosines. Yesterday we learned law of sines. So you have a little bit more of that, what we did yesterday. You have that today as well. But today we're going to learn law of cosines. And again, it is a way to find side lengths and angle measurements for any triangle, not just right triangles. So at the beginning, we just could use right triangles. You have a review tomorrow and Thursday, and a test is on Friday, okay? It's just trig on, so just the last few sections, which is kind of nice. Now, today, you need to have your calculator very handy, because we are going to do so much calculator work today. What mode should your calculator be in? Degree mode, okay. And so make sure it's in degree mode. Today is a rather long formula, but really it's just a pattern. And so, the person who wrote this thinks there's 3 different formulas. I disagree. There's one formula, and if you just recognize the pattern, it works in any case, which is kind of nice. Today, what we're looking at is we're going to have an angle measure, and in this case, I'm going to go with angle C. And there's its opposite side length C. And we use law of cosines when we also get the side angle side info. So side angle side info is what we're going to be given today. And really, it's just a pattern. So to write down the formula here, if I was totally generic, my formula would be my opposite side squared. And when I say that, I'm saying I'm opposite my angle measure that I have. So in this case, we're going to use little c. So little c squared equals side squared plus side squared. So I could write b squared plus a squared. It's the other 2 sides squared. What does that formula look like? Looks just like the Pythagorean theorem. That's exactly right. However, the law of cosines has a cosine in it, so there's a little bit more. Because this works on any triangle, we have to compensate for something. So we're going to do minus 2 times the product of those 2 sides. So times b times a times the cosine of our in-between angle. So we get 2 times b times a times the cosine of c. It's a very big, long formula. But I promise once you learn the pattern, it's actually really, really easy. We're going to do enough for you to learn that pattern. The key here is that whatever our angle is, we have the opposite side is what we're equal to. So our angle is our included angle, and it's equal to the opposite side. So those are the things that are really key. But really just a little bit of practice is all we need, and you'll be able to figure out the pattern, I promise. So let's look at the first one so you can just sort of see what we're talking about here. You'll notice in this picture I have this 65-degree angle, and opposite that angle is the side we're trying to find. So there's our opposite side and the included angle, and that angle is between 2 side lengths here. So we have side, an angle, and a side information. So our formula starts with the opposite side squared, so that's in this case our x being squared, is equal to side squared plus side squared. Now, does it matter if I did 7 squared plus 12 squared or 12 squared plus 7 squared? No. The order of those does not matter. Pick a side, any side, okay? So we have our side squared plus side squared minus 2 times the product of the sides. So 2 times 7 times 12 times the cosine of the included angle. So the angle in between is 65 degrees. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the formula. Now, the nice thing is all the rest is calculator work. everything to the right-hand side here is all numbers. So we're just going to go ahead and use our calculator. And this is be careful, type slowly. Just type everything into the calculator. 2 times 7 times 12 times the cosine of 65, all in one giant long line. And we're going to get a big old number here. We get x squared is equal to 122.0001. And then that's x squared. How do we get x by itself?
Square root.
We're going to square root both sides to cancel out the square. Just like before, let's use the answer button. So I'm going to do second square root, so I get my square root. And then I want to call second answer, so that I'm using the previous answer. And that way we don't have any round-off error. All right, and so we get x equals 11.04, which is just going to round to 11.0 to the 10th place. So, all right. We're going to get really good at this pattern. Let's try another. Let's look at number 2. So here we have our angle is 108 degrees, and the opposite side is our x. They've given us side, angle, side information. So we're going to use law of cosines. How does our formula start? X squared equals. Yeah, side squared plus side squared. So 25 squared plus 20 squared minus twice the product of the sides times the cosine of the in-between angle. Is the formula easy or hard? It's pretty easy, right? Once you get the pattern, it's not too bad. Is it long? Yeah, it's long. It is long. But the nice thing is we just get to use our calculator once we have that all set up. 25 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times 25 times 20 times the cosine of 108. Does it matter the product here? If I did 2 times 20 times 25, does that matter?
No.
No. Again, that multiplication is commutative, so the order of those numbers, you're still going to get the same thing. All right, so we get x squared equals 1334.0169. And then what do we need to do? Square root both sides. So square root of the answer, square root the answer, and we get 36.5. All right, questions on this? Pretty good. All right, we're going to do one more here. Let's look at number 3. We have our angle is 34 degrees. Our opposite side is the x we're trying to figure out. And they've given us side, angle, side info. So how does my formula start? X squared equals? Good. 17 squared plus 13 squared minus twice the product of those sides times the cosine of that included angle. I really prefer words. Just saying that phrase over and over is really the best way to go. Nice little pattern. Minus 2 times 17 times 13 times the cosine of 34. Do we have a very high potential for calculator problems?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much typing in here. So, yeah, be careful, take your time. So we get x squared equals 91.5653. And then what do we need to do? Square root the answer. So x equals 9.6. Beautiful. All right, any questions on those? Okay. So now that you've got that pattern figured out, let's figure out how to find the angle measures. The nice thing is the setup is exactly the same. However, if we need to find angle measures, to find the angle measure, we actually need to use those inverse functions in order to get the x all by itself. So here, this side is the problem. We have to do a little more problem solving. But the setup is very, very much the same. So we have our angle. This time it's x, and we're trying to figure out the angle measure. Our opposite side is 7. We still have a side and an angle and a side here. So how does our formula begin? 7 squared. Yes, the opposite side squared is equal to side squared plus side squared minus twice the product of those sides times the cosine of our angle, which now is cosine of x, since we're trying to find that angle measure. Now, what we need to do here is we are going to eventually get cosine of x all by itself. But we have a lot of cleanup to do before we can get to that point. So what is 7 squared? 49. Okay. Now, in our calculator, I can add up these squares. So let's do, in our calculators, 12 squared plus 11 squared. So that gives me 265. I can also multiply all those numbers together in our calculator. Again, just trying to clean everything up. So 2 times 12 times 11. Whoops. There we go. So that's going to be a negative 264 times the cosine of x. Let me ask you a question. Is 265 minus 264 cosine of x 1 cosine of x? Yeah, no. No. This is sort of like, let's see, 26 minus 25x. Can I combine those? No, because this one has an x and this one does not. So they're not like terms. This is the same thing. This has a cosine of x on it. It's not.
So you subtract 200.
Yeah. So we actually have to move this 265 away. So we're going to subtract the 265. Move that 265 to the opposite side. So we do 49 minus 265. We get negative 216 equals negative 264 times the cosine of x. How do we get cosine of x by itself?
You divide by 8.
Divide by negative 264 on both sides. So those 264s are going to cancel out, leaving cosine of x alone. And here we can do this in our calculator. So negative 216 divided by negative 264 gives me this 0.8181 repeating. Now, this is the part. How do we free the x from the cosine function?
You cosine.
Cosine inverse, yes, of both sides. We're going to do that cosine inverse. Cosine inverse and cosine cancel each other out, so we get x equals, and in my calculator, now I just want to do cosine inverse of the answer. So cosine inverse with second answer in there. Ooh. 35.1 degrees for our angle. All right. This one has a lot more math to do. Yeah? All right, let's try another. We have our angle x, and the opposite side is 35. I still have side angle side info here, so I'm using law of cosines. What should my formula start with? 35 squared. Good. So 35 squared equals side squared plus side squared minus twice the product of those sides times the cosine of our angle x. All right, what is 35 squared? 1225, gracias. We can add up some squares here. 24 squared plus 16 squared. $832, thank you. And we can multiply some stuff using those handy dandy calculators. Negative 768, thank you. Times the cosine of x. Once you cleaned it up, then it's just solving. So what do we do to solve? Good. Subtract 832. 1225 minus 832 is 393 equals negative 768 times the cosine of x. Then what do we do? Divide by negative 768. What I've been finding all day long is the dividing by negatives, like just you drop a negative, you have to be very, very careful. So we get negative 0.5117 equals the cosine of x. And how do you get x by itself? Cosine inverse. I heard opposite, but inverse is a little bit better. Inverse function undoes. All right, so we're going to do cosine inverse of our answer. So we get x equals 120.8 degrees. Questions on any of these so far? No? Okay. All right, last one. I'm going to do this last one just to make sure it's in there real good. Okay. All right, we got our angle x. We have our opposite side of 21. And we have side, angle, side, info. How does my formula start? 21 squared equals side squared plus side squared minus twice the product times the cosine of our angle x. What should we do next? Clean it up. Yeah, 21 squared is 441. 16 squared plus 26 squared is 932. And multiply a bunch of stuff together. 2 times 16 times 26 is, minus 832 times the cosine of x. Then we can go ahead and subtract. Move that 932. Subtract 932. 441 minus 932 is negative 491. Equals, negative 832 cosine of x. And then what do? Divide by negative 832. Again, just hitting divide pulls that previous answer, so it's a little time saver. 0.5901 equals cosine of x. And how do we get x by itself? Inverse. Cosine inverse of both sides. And again, the nice thing is most of this, once you get that first two lines, most of it you can do on your calculator. So that's really key there. So we get x equals 53.8 degrees. So again, these first two lines are really the key things to write down. I do also want to remind you, on Delta Math, they're not going to give you the triangle. So you are going to have to draw your own triangle, and that is really important. So as a reminder, if I have triangle DEF, the way triangles are named, the capital letters are the vertices, the lowercase letters are the opposite sides. So opposite angle D is lowercase d. Opposite angle E is lowercase e. And opposite angle F is lowercase f. So take your time setting up those triangles and get that first line or two in, and the rest you can do on your calculator. All right, you guys should be able to refresh, and it should appear in Delta Math.